Welcome back to Monday Night Live. Your Kansas City Chiefs are about to go to minicamp, and we know you have questions. He's Dan Harms. I'm Ryan Tracy. I might be on a delay. You might not be able to see me at this point. We have no idea what's going on with this stream. It's storming by me. It's crazy out there. Welcome back to RGR Football. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell if you're not one of us already. But if you are, thank you all. I've been on vacation. I was up in the great north in Canada for a week. Nice to, yeah, exactly. I was north of the wall is what it was. And yeah, now I'm back. So Dan, thank you for holding it down, being the guy in charge around here. How did it go?
It went well. I mean, you dropped in, you saw how it went. Everything went pretty well, and everyone's great. Everyone always helps me get through whenever I'm solo leading all this stuff. So I appreciate everyone always doing that and helping me out because, it's a partnership. We have days where I'm not going to be here. I mean, Ryan did this before I got here, so it's no big deal to him. But there are days where he's not here, and I was not doing this before he got here. So it's a little bit of a learning curve, and it's always fun to do those things and have everyone help me out. So definitely always fun to do them, but more fun when we get to do it together because that's what this is about, right?
I totally agree. And yeah, I realize it's a leaping off point when you're solo, and there's a lot to do, and I always miss stuff in the chat, and I totally get where you're coming from. So folks, sorting out the internet, yes, we're always trying to do that, especially my connection. So Cody, thank you. It would take a while to do it in its meant fashion, but hey, we're gonna go. Shout out to our guy FLDB. Woo! Thanks, buddy. 3 years on the dot. I love it. You celebrate by getting a hookup from me. So now that we're here, we're gonna have to talk about that. There's several other people that I think have reached the milestone that I think we should celebrate. So I'm gonna try to do a rundown and see who's got the longest tenure, and I'll start sending out some things because I think that's definitely worth it. I appreciate you guys. We couldn't do it without you. So it is what it is. And you, if everybody doesn't know, FLDB is the guy who kind of got our Discord off the ground. Stevie and Gooch and Aaron started it, certainly. But I wasn't that quick to learn it, and they were struggling a little bit. And FLDB came and hooked us up and sorted us out. And now it's a great community. You can join it by hitting the join button underneath Dan, and it is just for RGR members. So it is a simple way to make that connection and hang out with folks that love this team and love football as well as this channel. So we are definitely going to celebrate you, FLDB. I appreciate you.
Yes.
Hey, Caroline. Caroline, I hope we talk here soon this week. So we're off and running. I know there's a lot of questions, folks, and this is your show. All we're going to do tonight is answer your questions. That's pretty much the way it goes down. I like to start with a little topic so everybody can get their questions in, so I can even get even farther behind. But Dan, I'm gonna put it to you. It's always hard to do something that's never been done before. I see a lot of different expectations about, hey, they've won back-to-backs. This isn't the hardest one. I think it's the most difficult one, is the third in a three-peat. Where are you?
I think you have to understand how much football the Chiefs have played over the course of the last 5 years to really appreciate the question and be able to understand the answer, because it's not just winning 3 Super Bowls. It's how much football are you playing? How many miles are you putting on your bodies? How many injuries are you playing through? How is the recovery time post Super Bowl win? And is it going to create problems through the rest of the season? As we saw last year, Travis Kelce got hurt for the first time since he was a rookie in the NFL. When I say hurt, I mean actually had to miss time, and it impacted his play. Those are two different things. Is that going to linger? Is it going to make it more more possible that he's going to get injured? Everybody else, guys who get nicked up, Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, these running backs, there's been injuries all the time. So I would tend to agree that the third is the hardest one. I think that first and third are like vying for the hardest one, because to start it, you got to win one first. And obviously the Chiefs did that. They tried to repeat. They couldn't do that. They lost that second one to the Tampa Bay. But getting it back to win that one to start it is also just as difficult. And if you look back at that first one, that game very easily could have gone either way. So And same said with this last one that they won. So it's not easy to win, and you put consistent mental miles on yourself. But we know that Patrick Mahomes and company we're already locked in. Like this is not, it was not about two. It wasn't about two. They knew they could get two. It was about three. It's about actually setting the record and being maybe the greatest team. Maybe they'll go down as the greatest team in NFL history. That's what this is about for them.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And yes, you're building a building, right? And Super Bowl I takes you to the 20th floor, and then trying to add on 5 more to get the second Super Bowl. Maybe you got to add 10 more to do the 10th. And I get what you guys are saying, or those that do say it about, well, you've already built those first 20 stories, but you got to remember, you lose people to free agency, you lose people to age and retirements, etc. And so you're peeling things back off of the top of the mountain that you've already built up. And so, yes, it's not like building foundation. It's really topping off the penthouse every year, but I get that. It's still a challenge. And nobody knows that better than Gary, because Gary's been here since day one of this channel. He is one of our mods. And if you would listen to him and hit the like button, we would appreciate it. And everybody just shout out Gary because he's a fun dude, and I appreciate you, buddy. We're going to get into your questions, and I'm sure we'll get more into this, like how do they build towards, because I do think that this is not just on Patrick's mind. I think it's on everyone. And there it goes. Michael want to know any word on if Tony will show for mandatory minicamp tomorrow. And I just recorded Locked On Chiefs about an hour ago, you guys. That should be on here shortly. And that was the question that I asked. Like, that's the big question mark. I don't understand what's going on with him. They keep saying every chance they put a microphone in front of somebody's face that knows anything, they're like, he's the best guy with the ball in his hand, except he's not at practice and he's not designated with an injury. And we don't know what the hell's going on. So what do you think, Dan?
I think he's out practicing his golf swing because, that's what he's about right now. It's not about football for him. Okay? It's not about football for Kadarius. It's not. And I'm very much over this whole. So I'm over it. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
If you consistently have issues from the first team that drafted you to the second team that traded for you, and then you don't show up to camp at all for anything, you're not serious about football. The Chiefs don't need players like that on their team. They simply don't. It needs to be over. It needs to be done with. It needs to be put in the rear view, because all it is right now, it's him making it about him. He's missing this, so people are talking about Kadarius Toney. They're not talking about how the Chiefs could be going for a three-peat this year. What are the differences from this team this year, last year? It's like, oh, where's Kadarius Toney? That's what they're asking. That's what he wants. He wants people talking about him. And I'm done. I'm over it. This needs to be done and over with and put in the rearview mirror. And the Chiefs need to move on. They need to be done with it. I'm done.
I'm kind of with you. And Micah, thanks for the question. As always, it goes into DeGoat's question. Do you think that he makes the roster? Because a lot of folks, like PM15 DeGoat, is still rooting for him. I'm not rooting against him, but I don't think I'm rooting for him anymore.
Yeah, I'm done rooting for him. But again, talent-wise, sure. Yeah, if he were to show up and actually be, who he is and put aside everything that he's trying, I guess, to complicate this whole situation and be about football, yeah, he'd make the roster because he's talented. He is very talented. He's an exceptionally good football player, but he doesn't appear to care about football.
That's what it comes down to. And, if he's going to be out there, doing what he needs to do for him to get things done, it's, again, just another example of not putting the team first. And that's, I think, what the biggest distraction that we should guard against is people doing that, because I don't think it can be contagious in this particular locker room, but it could be. But if your golf swing is more important to you, like you said, than being there, which at a phase that is voluntary, okay, fine. He's not the only one who needs to practice his golf swing, by the way. So do I. And we have something that can help you. Our friends over at PXG have something for you. So check them out and support the people that support us. My golf buddies tell me all the time that nobody makes golf clubs like PXG, period. And you know what? They're right. I went in for a fitting and I saw for myself. I wanted to check out this Black Ops driver that my buddy just got. Total game changer for him, but I'm a newbie. So I wanted to check it out and maybe get some instruction along the way. The fitting does it all for you. Make sure that the experts see how you move, analyze your swing, whether you have a good one that's established or a beginner one like me, and give you feedback in real time on how to improve. That's the name of the game for me. And it also has to come in at a price. If you're thinking the PXG's high performance equipment is too expensive, their clubs often come in at less than the so-called leading brands, and they're worth checking out. They made me a believer at PXG. They'll do the same for every golfer in Kansas City. Visit pxg.com/RGR, and you can go schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City right now. It's at 7517 West 119th Street in Overland Park. You can get fitted for any club, and they're going to give you a dozen balls for free. That's pxg.com/RGR to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/RGR. Limit 1 dozen balls. Promotion ends on June 30th, and terms and conditions do apply. See the store for details. Thank you for this, Stephen. I do appreciate you. I do what I can.
I just want to say that what I said was not unintentional. I said it on purpose.
Oh, I know. And I dropped the ball on it because I haven't talked ball in long enough. I should have just gone with it. That's all on me, folks.
It's all good. We got there, guys. We got there. And that's the point, right? And just really quickly, I want to emphasize how much fun it was going down there and actually doing this entire fitting. It was a blast. I'm not a super serious golfer. Like, I love to golf. It's a lot of fun. I'm not very good at it. And like I said, he's a newbie. We both enjoyed going to do this, and it was very much worth the time that it took. You get to learn a lot and hit a lot of different golf balls, a lot of different shots, and they do everything in there, with like shaft changes, all of that fun stuff. And it's just so much fun to go do that and experience it. So if you guys really if you just want to get into golf, and if you already are into it and you want to kind of test some things out, going down there right now and getting a fitting is one of the best ways to start off.
Yeah, absolutely. And use the pxg.com/RGR and you can set it up right now. And, a couple more drafts. And if we have enough time, folks, look for our newest channel coming, RGR Golf. See what we can figure out. Micah, do you think that the new Kansas Dome Stadium proposal, I haven't seen the details, so I'm really interested in your thoughts, Dan. Whether fans like it or not, the future of stadiums will be domes and retractable roofs to host Super Bowls and events year-round. You make some sense there, buddy, but I haven't seen the proposal, Dan, specifically to a dome.
I haven't seen anything inked in terms of, I know that Kansas is putting together something to talk with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs apparently have accepted this conversation, is what I understand it to be. And again, I haven't seen the legitimate proposal, but why wouldn't they? Why would Kansas not put a proposal together to try to lure the Chiefs away from Missouri if they're having trouble nailing down Arrowhead Stadium? Like, at the end of the day, that's what this is about. Why wouldn't they try to get all of that revenue into Kansas instead of, Missouri? They also have something up on Missouri. You can sports bet in Kansas. That's something that the Chiefs would very much love to have in terms of the revenue from that as well. So it makes a lot of sense from a monetary standpoint.
Yeah, I'm with you. Mike, I hear where you're going in about the future, and I will just say this: like, I would not like to see a dome in Kansas, but I would like to have either a retractable roof, or I really like the concept like you see in Seattle, where the roof is raised and there's gap above the top of the stands, so it's still open air. It would still be cold. It just wouldn't be like as much snowfall, and it wouldn't be as much wind. And I do like that concept of being a bit of both. Yeah. So you still have the advantage of being a cold weather team. You know what I mean? Ask the Dolphins how much they really like coming into town last year. I don't want to lose that advantage myself. So I totally feel you. And you had another one. What will it take for Reed to win a Coach of the Year? Also, surprise AFC team in the West. I'm interested. How can he win Coach of the Year? Is there anything left he can do to do it?
They have to go undefeated. We've talked about this. If you go undefeated, he wins Coach of the Year guaranteed, bar none, zero questions asked. But they don't care about that. Andy Reid doesn't care about winning Coach of the Year, doesn't care about going undefeated. So in their minds, I don't think this is something that they're really worried about. But that's what it would take, Mike. That's the only way he's winning Coach of the Year with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. That's it.
That is exactly my thought. Like, they're never going to give him the credit that he's due because of Patrick. Surprise AFC team this year. It's a great question. I don't know, but if they figure it out and it actually works the way that Chris Ballard thinks so, the Colts might not only push the Texans, they might push some other teams around. I don't know.
That's the team that I kept coming back to because while I don't think that they have a ton of like difference makers, I truly don't. I think that Anthony Richardson could be a difference maker. I think he was starting to find some stuff last year before he got hurt. Go back and watch that Rams game, and there are some things in there that make you kind of like spit out your drinks and sit upright in your chair, and you're just like, okay, he's got the tools, but they have a lot of good players. I do think that the Cleveland Browns, while it wouldn't necessarily be like a huge surprise because of their defense from last year, they have a lot of tools. I think people just kind of forget about them because they, they're in the same division with the Ravens and the Bengals, who expect to be back, and they just kind of get forgot in the shuffle. If this is a very big if, because I think he's toast, but if Deshaun Watson plays anywhere close to an above average quarterback this year, the Cleveland Browns are going to be a tough out for any single team that they play.
Yeah, I can get down with that. Now, I don't know if they could put that together, but if they did, I agree. They have the makings of something real there. Steven, welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you made it. Shout out to Northern Power Lacrosse. I like it. My first season coaching, and we won the championship. Well done, Steve. Very nice. And thank you for the super chat and supporting us as you always have. We pulled an Andy Reid and held stuff back for the playoffs. See?
Nice.
See, you learn. You can apply it in your life. I like that. Represent Northern Colorado. You got to let me know where Northern Power is. Where now that I know it's Colorado, I can find it. I'm going to be up in Fort Collins in a few weeks. So you'll be able to find me at New Belgium, amongst some other things. So maybe we'll put a little get together. I know there's a lot of folks in Colorado as well. And I'm going to be in Kansas at some point here in the next couple of weeks as well. I'm kind of traveling all over the bit, Canada and everywhere else. So keep your ears and eyes peeled, folks. And I'll try to find you. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the support. Hope you're doing well. Congrats.
Appreciate it, Steven.
And Steve, one of our members as well. Nice to see you, buddy. If Clyde Allaire got hurt this season, and what backup running back on the roster could rush for over 400 yards this season? And would there be any interest in free agents Latavius Murray? I'll let you go first.
Right. I personally believe that Amani Bailey would be my pick as the guy to be able to come in and rush for 400 yards. I think he could do it. His skill set, the way he can get up to speed. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but I think his burst is good. I think he's got decent. No, he's better than Isaiah Pacheco when it comes to turning. We'll just say that. He's not the best in the world, but he's better turning than I think Isaiah is, and he's a capable player out of the backfield. So I think he's somebody that could rush for 400 yards in this offense. There's not a ton else other players on this roster I think could do it, which is concerning. And that's the big reason Ryan and myself and tons of other people in Chiefs Kingdom are concerned with the running back room. And we're all kind of just waiting for Jerick McKinnon to come back and sign right before training camp, because that feels like that's what's going to happen. Personally, Latavius Murray is like a slower Isaiah Pacheco, very upright, physical runner. He's much better pass protection though. So maybe if you don't have Jerick McKinnon coming back, he piques your interest because of what he can do as a pass protector. I think he's a much better short area back too. A short distance back, not short area. Those are two different things, two very different things. So that's my opinion.
Well, I agree with you. I'm going to stay if it's on the roster, and I just don't know if they're seeing enough out of Deneric Prince to make him the third guy. It feels to me like Reese Zammit is going to be on the roster because of the return thing. And so the question becomes is when would he be able to pick up some load out of the backfield? I don't know. I tried to take it slow and keep the training wheels on for him in terms of my expectations, but just through OTAs, and again, it's just OTAs, folks. Let's not be guilty of overreacting to them, but it sure feels like he's going to be on the roster. And does that mean he's learning faster than I thought he would? Possibly. And could he do that in the backfield? That's possible too. You like Bailey. I like Steele because I think people are still giving him. They forget he had 850 yards rushing last year at UCLA. I mean, he can be a power back. He's not a shifty tailback, but he's not just a fullback either. And so if it came down to it and everybody's hurt, you could have a 1-2 punch if you went to a little bit more power. It's just that I don't know that it's going to hit the 400-yard mark depending on when it might happen. So my question is, who gets cut? I think it's going to be a veteran guy, and if it's not Jet, like you said, the day before camp, is somebody get cut during camp that they're like, hey, we're gonna pick you up, give you a shot at a ring. That's kind of where I'm leading.
That's the only thing I can think of right now, because again, it's a lot of youth and inexperience behind Clyde and Pacheco. That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steven's got another one in here. Thanks, buddy. With Darren Waller's retirement, should Kelsey give him a call? I heard he knows someone who can help with his music career. What do you think of Waller? Because I think he's pretty washed.
Darren Waller released a music video and then retired from the NFL. I think we all need to understand how serious about playing football at this point he is. It's not. He's not serious about it. He doesn't want to do it anymore. And fair, good for him. Go off and do what you want to do. Zero chance that I want to see Darren Waller play in the NFL this year for the Kansas City Chiefs. None.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And I didn't know about he put out a music video. I was unawares. I was north of the border, folks. Sorry. Do you think that the new kickoff will be about seeing which kickers are best at skipping the ball off the turf before the return team touches the ball? I think it's going to be a huge experiment. Maybe that's the way that it goes. The whole two receiver or two deep back kind of thing, like I'm just not sure who's going to put some kind of weird wrinkle on it. And honestly, I don't spend my nights thinking about special teams. That's Dave Tobe's job. But if somebody's going to come up with something, I'll bet you it's going to be Tobe. I'm trying to think of who else around the league. Do you have another special teams coach that you think is like super crafty and creative that we need to watch?
John Harbaugh, who's, the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens for a reason. I think that he's going to have some things up his sleeve as well. But personally, if I'm Dave Tobe, I'm kicking it as low and as hard as I possibly can. Hope it just careens off someone's face and you just get it. That's what I want to do. I'm going to aim at somebody and I'm going to hope it bounces right back to my return team. That is exactly what I want to do. Because if you don't get the ball to dribble down from like the 10 to the 5, basically it's a punt. This is now turning into a punt off of a tee. That's what this is. So you have to train to kick the ball high and be able to spin backwards. This is no longer, you don't want it anywhere near the end zone. You want it to come out and stay inside. But, there's a lot of different things you're going to have to do. But if it's for me, I'm kicking it as hard as I can at somebody and then just, seeing what happens, because it might be at the 35 anyway. If it goes out of the end zone, it's at the 35. No one wants that. Yeah. Yeah. Have some fun with it. Okay. We're probably going to also see a lot of squib kicks. I think that's also going to be the next wrinkle. It's going to be more squibs in terms of trying to get that down there to stop before it goes in the end zone.
That's how I'm seeing it as well. Caroline, nice to see you. Congrats on the new role, Dan. I'm glad you made that announcement. That's going to be awesome for you. I'm curious about what mitigation or recovery strategies do you think the Chiefs will use with the limited rest time late in the season? Can this be quantified or tracked?
So first of all, I appreciate it, Caroline. For those that don't know, that I have accepted a scouting role with TDN. So this season, and for I don't know how many seasons more they'll have me, I will be a college football scout for TDN. Doesn't mean I'm going anywhere here. It doesn't mean I'm changing, draft stuff. We're still going to do all that here and have fun with that. So to the other area, I don't think you can really quantify or track rest and recovery stuff based off of in season games. Last year, they had a couple of close starts as well. Now, this is going to be a little bit different. I believe they play 3 games in 10 days. That's the very different. The word doesn't even come to mind for what that is. It's kind of despicable of the NFL to do that to any team, to play 3 games in 10 days. It's dangerous, and they shouldn't ever have to deal with something like that. So that's all I'll say about that. And we also know it is near the end of the season, and especially if the Chiefs are anywhere near 1, 2, or 3, or 4, they're just not going to play Week 17. They're just not going to do it. And Andy Reid knows that already in the back of his mind. The idea here is to win as many games as they can, get through that stretch with 2 wins. You get through that stretch with 2 wins and the least amount of hurt as you can, and then you rest Week 18. Hopefully you have the bye, and then you just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I agree. There's a few things that I would do from the sports science and physiology point of view. You would have to sacrifice some players in terms of like their full recovery in order to do the measurements. There's a couple of things. You can do VO2 maxes, right? You can do force creation. It's a neurological stimulus measurement, usually done with an electrical bias that gives you a baseline of muscle recruitment. You can do all those things, but the actual testing is exerting force. So you're risking the recovery you're trying to get by testing your actual players. That makes it really difficult. You could take some special teams players, maybe guys that get 30 snaps in a given week that aren't your starters. Maybe you could test them. And so there's a couple of protocols that I think players use that I don't know have the full science behind them within an actual mitigated season that I would like to see. They use hyperbaric chambers to try to push the recovery that way. There's a sleep cold philosophy that I think does permeates part of the NFL as well, that by sleeping colder, where you have to radiate enough heat to heat the immediate area, you're getting that influx of lactic acid, and you're getting the kidney function to clean up your blood, allow you to produce more red blood cells, and actually deliver more oxygenation. There's a couple of things you could do there. But again, it's all about blood draws and force exertion. And then determining those is detrimental to how they play the next ball game. And so it's a little bit tough. I'd much rather see it or the study go on at the college level than the professional level.
Got it.
But hey, if we get somebody to buy Caroline, you can be in charge of the research. I like it. Cody, how do we feel about adding McCole back into the mix? Worthy seems to like having the fastest wide receiver core. Could be fun. I mentioned McCole 3 or 4 weeks ago because the whole thing with Rasheed, if you're gonna mitigate not having like a power receiver that you feel can physically take the abuse inside, and maybe they try to do that with Justin Watson. I don't know if that's going to be successful. I'm going all in on my strength, and I just want to bombs away as much speed as I can get. Does McCole make it? I don't know. McCole making this roster, I think, depends on 2 things: the hamstring that's attached to the backside of Xavier Worthy, and whether KT has any sense about him at all or not. If they're going to give up on it, then he's in like Flynn. If not, I wonder, dude. Like, how do you feel about McCole back, and do you think he can make the roster?
I think he can always. There's always a chance he makes it because he knows the playbook, and the fact that he's back after 2 years ago not being on the team, trading for him last year, and then bringing him back again. There's something comfort Andy Reid loves about having players that know what he wants out of them, even though he can't track a football to save his life. And that's neither here nor there. But what I can't understand about what they're doing is that we're at another point in time where there's small slot receivers on the team and they don't have a large presence. That tells me that maybe they don't expect Rashee Rice to miss as many games as we think. That's my current interpretation, because you have Justin Watson and you have Rashee Rice. And yes, Xavier Worthy is 6 foot, but he's 165 pounds. So you're not really going to be tasking him with big catches over the middle of the field, a ton. Not that he can't do it. Again, that's not it, guys. Like you guys want to see him handle contact and take on some contact and deliver some hits. You can go watch his tape. It's littered all over it. It's everywhere. So it's more about understanding what you have. So again, I've said it, I will say it, and I'll continue to say it. Rashee Rice's role should be Sky Moore's for however many games he's not playing. That should be his role. Period. End of story. I won't talk about it anymore. So Mecole Hardman is MVS in this instance. That's what he is, but he's smaller. That's the only situation that this makes sense if he makes the team. He's being used as MVS. Run down the field. We'll throw you a football every now and then and kind of figure it out.
Well, I agree with you in that makes sense, because if you wanted to go get a big body receiver, there's a few out there you could go get. Mecole knows the system, so maybe that's the advantage. But I agree with you. I think the guy that I'm worried about, not even worried, like if they're gonna get tougher, it should be Sky Moore's. But if somebody's gonna get caught that ought to be on this roster, I wonder if it isn't Sky. I wonder if Remigio is going to cut into Sky's chances. And if so, if he can prove that he can take hits, is Remigio a viable alternative? I don't know that. And I don't know that they know that.
That's fair. And I think that he would be more of a Kadarius Toney replacement. That's how I view Nico Remigio. I think he's a quick, shifty guy that you get the ball in his hands and let him work. Obviously, he's shown a little bit in training camp last year of being able to catch the football down the field, but he can do a lot of what Mecole was asked to do, and Kadarius, in the sense that you get in the ball and you let him work. He also can stretch the field a little bit. And granted, we haven't seen a ton of it from him because they haven't had enough time to use him, but he's fast. We know he's fast. So that's where it becomes difficult, because if you look at Mecole, you look at Remigio, even Kadarius to an extent, I think Sky Moore is the only guy that can handle contact physicality over the middle of the field. I think Kadarius does it, but he does it in a reckless manner where he can get hurt very easily. And it's fun to watch. He can deliver hits. He can dip his shoulder. He moves differently. But again, when we're talking about taking football seriously, I would much more, again, personally lean to Sky Moore to do some of that than to Kadarius Toney, who seems to not care about his own body and actually playing football.
I get you. I seem to be having a pretty good lag, so I'm just going to say welcome back to the membership, Darius. Hope you're doing well. And Dana, if you would, take this one so that I'm not talking about it.
All right, appreciate you, John. Hey, guys, any word on Carson Steele? I haven't heard anything about Carson Steele. We've seen a little bit of, the OTAs, him working. I believe he caught a pass behind the back from Patrick Mahomes in training in those OTAs periods. So he's on the field with the guys, and that's always good to see. So not a ton of word on these UDFA rookies, because there isn't a ton of experience and a ton of opportunity for them to get in there and work with the team until you actually put the pads on and then see what they can do. And I think that's just what, at this point, we're just waiting out the time, trying to figure out how that's going to look. So while Ryan is off figuring out his internet, I don't know if he's figured it out yet, but he's back.
We're going to see.
Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think he's figured it out. I will continue on, and I will. There we go. Clinton, thank you for the super chat, my friend. McDuffie, Williams, Watson, Najee Johnson, Kamal Hayden, and no Nick Jones. It's possible. I also don't know if we can just assume that Kamal Hayden makes the roster, because how healthy is he? And he didn't play most of the end of last year because he was not healthy, and that's not his fault, obviously. So getting him into camp to see how he's going to perform. He also could be on the short list to be, all of a sudden, you come up with this injury in training camp and you get on the IR for the rest of the season, and you stash him on the IR until 2025. That could very well happen for Kamal Hayden. But at the end of the day, if he comes out and he plays very, very well, which I think his upside is more so better than Watson and Williams as a player at his peak, than maybe he gets credit for. So that's always a possibility. I don't know, man. With Najee Johnson, Watson, and Williams pushing, I think maybe there's a chance that all of them make the roster. That's something that I'm very interested to see. Appreciate the super chat. But I think he would be the odd man out. But maybe not. Also, because he's the only one that would play the slot, not named Trent McDuffie. So he might have himself a little bit of more of a way in. Granted, we've seen that they want to use Chamari Connor as a slot player this year. So there's a lot of moving parts with the secondary, and they could also, play a bunch of different people in there in the training camp and see how they work. So that's something I'm very interested to watch. So thank you for bringing it up. Maybe Ryan is switching internets back right now, and we'll see him here shortly. Steven, appreciate another question from you today. How many wide receivers do we have, and who is the odd man out? We have a monopoly of short slot guys. Yeah, we just kind of talked about that, right? Unfortunately for the Chiefs, that's what they kind of want right now, right? They want fast, they want speed, and the NFL is changing in the sense that you don't just have to be big and fast. You don't have to be Megatron. You don't have to be DK Metcalf. You don't have to be those types of players to win on the outside and survive in the NFL in today's game. That's what they drafted. Xavier Worthy, bring in Hollywood Brown, two smaller players that have speed and have been able to showcase that it's not just at college that they can win. I'm going to tell you that I think Xavier Worthy's got it. Like, I think he has the it factor. I think he'll be just fine. And we know Marquise Brown's been dinged up from time to time. So there's going to be a very interesting decision that has to be made this year at training camp. And I don't think it's going to be 7. So Andy Reid leaned into the 7 wide receivers last year. He's like, fine, y'all want 7 receivers. We're going to give you 7 receivers. And it didn't work out. I think he's going to go back to 6. And it's going to be, I personally don't know how the Rashee Rice situation is going to unfold. Obviously, I don't think anybody does. But if he's on the roster, it's going to negate who else makes it. But if he's suspended and off the roster, you're going to see somebody make it, maybe like a Nico Remigio or one of, McCall Hardman, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, one of those 3. Because I think we can just assume right now that Justin Watson, Xavier Worthy, and Marquise Brown are going to be your 3 starters day one. That's what I'm going to say right now. It's a tough situation that they are in. Appreciate you, Steven. Michael, thank you for your question. Could Hardman be the wide receiver 2 because of Rice's possible suspension and Worthy being a rookie and his knowledge of the system? So I did just kind of touch on this, but the Chiefs have already come out and said that Xavier Worthy knows a lot more at this point in his career, this stage of his development, than any rookie receiver that they've ever worked with. So him knowing the system and getting on the same page with Mahomes is going to be first and foremost the most important thing for his on-field performance, next to this quote-unquote hamstring injury, as Ryan talked about earlier. We'll see how that develops and goes through. But I think what we need to understand about McCole Hardman is that he's not a wide receiver 2. He's not a wide receiver 3. He's at best a wide receiver 4 and a guy you rotate in and out. So in this offense, even with his knowledge of the system, I don't think you can throw him in there at wide receiver 2 and say, hey, handle a bunch of work.
I still have an enormous lag, so I don't know what I'm going to do here other than to say yes. I'm with you. If he makes this roster, it's going to be in a very, very specific role, and I think it's going to be a tough battle for him. So I'm going to go reboot, and I'll just let you, continue what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Appreciate it. Have fun.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Sorry, guys. Again, just blame the person whose internet he's using, because we all know we can't say it. We can't say his name. It's like Beetlejuice. You say it a couple of times, he just shows up and starts banning you from the internet. We don't want that to happen. So, Pono, appreciate your question. Why is management not cutting him? Save the spot for Remigio. I assume you're talking about Kadarius Toney. That's because they're very adamant about his talent, and they believe that if they can get him on the field, if he's here for mandatory minicamp, shows up for training camp, that he's going to make the team and make them better. At the end of the day, football teams organizations, coaching staffs care about one thing and one thing only when it comes to their rosters. Do you make us better? The Chiefs believe that Kadarius Toney makes them better when he's on the field and playing. It's a tough situation, place to be in. That does end up being typically why players are on rosters versus some that aren't, that maybe will work hard and be there if they're not as talented as some other players. I hate it too. It's not fun. Unfortunately, it happens. Des, thank you for the super chat. Do you think CJ needs a defensive player of the year to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? I absolutely do not. I don't think so, specifically because of what he's going to do and continue to do in the postseason. I think he's starting to finally get those sacks in the postseason where they matter, and winning rings does a lot for, honestly, Super Bowls and Pro Bowls matter a lot to the Hall of Fame voting, which is ridiculous to me, which never makes any sense. So on the Pro Bowl side. So I don't think so. I think Chris is going to continue to rack up sacks, continue to rack up postseason sacks, continue to win Super Bowl rings. And at the end of the day, that's going to make him a first ballot Hall of Famer, along with his first team All Pros, which I think he's going to continue to rack those up, which should outdo a lot of harm from some of the voting community. So I think he'll be just fine being a first ballot Hall of Famer. I appreciate the super chat. All right, Steven, appreciate you being here tonight, and thank you for your question. I once asked if he was drafted, if Nick Bolton could be close to Bobby Bell, and you said no. Has that opinion changed? So I'm going to assume that question was meant for Ryan. I apologize, Steven. I'm going to go ahead and keep it starred so we can keep it in here, but I can't answer the question because I can't really tell you how well Bobby played in comparison to Nick. It's not my area of expertise. So I'll save that one for Ryan and we'll come back to it. All right. Steven, appreciate another super chat from you tonight. Northern Power is Fort Collins, Loveland, Windsor. I live in Boco. I'm going to assume that that's something with Colorado, but I'm in Denver this weekend to play in a tournament. Okay, another one that we'll save for Ryan because Ryan's the one that lives in Colorado when I do not. But I appreciate it, Steven. I will be two Stevens I've got to come back to here to get to Ryan. So you guys, we have like a lineup of Stevens here tonight. Appreciate y'all being here. Another Steven. Does Felix make the starting lineup? Is Pennell still on the roster? He was fantastic in the Super Bowl. So I don't think you're going to see Felix as the starter because Mike Dana was brought back on a good contract for him. Like that's a good number for the Chiefs, and we know that George Karlaftis is your starter, and I think it's going to be Mike Dana and him in base until you get Charles Omenihu back, and he's going to be your starter. So Felix is not going to be a starter. He's not. He's going to be a sub-package player. He's going to be a third down guy, rotate. They're going to have a lot of rotation, and I know that that's not what anybody wants to hear, but when you sign Mike Dana, you already have Charles Omenihu on the roster that you signed from last season. You have another first-round pick in George Karlaftis that is your starter. There isn't a spot for him to be able to, unless he just comes out this training camp and just is incredible. Then yes, he could. I don't see it happening. But again, we have to wait and see how he performs in training camp and how he performs in the preseason. I don't know if Mike Pennell is on the roster. I will look it up, though. Excuse me. Apparently, he is still on the roster. Oh, yeah. He's entering his fourth season with the Chiefs, so he is on the roster right now. Interesting. I would expect him to be a practice squad player and not do anything until the end of the season like he did this year, which is exactly what he should be used for. I'm a big fan of Mike Pennell. Agreed, he was fantastic in the Super Bowl. He was great all the way down the stretch, and he's definitely the kind of player that you'd love to have for that Super Bowl run. And he's going to be another player that same guy that they do what they did with last year and bring him up when the opportunity strikes. All right, Chris, I appreciate your question. with BJ Thompson, thankfully on the road to recovery, yes, thankfully he is doing better. That was scary. Is it still too soon to say the Chiefs players are dying to get out of practice? A little bit, just a little bit. It definitely is funny, but at the same time, at least he was at practice, right? He showed up. One just doesn't show up, and that's kind of where we're going to go with that. So, again, thankful that BJ Thompson is on the road to recovery after that scare, and he's going to be okay. Definitely not dying to get out of practice. It's not training camp yet. That's when they really start to do that, right? Oh, Steven, appreciate another question for me tonight. Oh yeah, another one for Ryan. I'm just gonna keep these saved for Ryan, guys. Steven, what do you think of Hicks? Can he be a tweener safety linebacker? So lucky for you, I have an entire Jaden Hicks draft prospect video on RGR for Jaden Hicks. Gives you everything that he did well at Washington State, some of the things he needs to work on, but the short of it, yes, he can be a tweener. I think he can play safety. I think he can play sub-package linebacker as well because of his physicality and his entire construction. I think he's just a big, physical, and strong player. Like, that's what you want, especially, like, I think I likened him to Dan Sorensen plus, a guy who's going to be bigger, faster, stronger, better in coverage, and all those things. He can actually play like a dime backer and a sub-package backer. So that's what I envision for the future of Jaden Hicks. I heard a beep. That's usually a good thing. When it comes to Ryan, anyway. All right, Danny, thank you for your question. Regarding the new kickoff rules, what's to stop a team from having their kicker line drive a kick at a blocker? If they mishandle it, you've got a live baller on the players in good position to recover. Hey, you are on the same level as me right now, Danny. We've got the same wavelength going. That's my game plan. My game plan is to kick it as hard as I can at somebody and hope it bounces back. And you have a live ball right there. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. And Ryan seems to be just fine because he's responding to what I'm saying pretty close. So
you're a funny guy, so I'm just trying to chuckle along at the right time.
All right. So Danny, I'm on the same page. We are on the same page here, and I don't think there's anything in the rules about it. If there is, you guys can find them for me because I'm not going to dig through the rules on that to see if there's something against it. I'll be very honest with you. But appreciate that, Danny. Ryan, we have a couple of questions and things for you. Okay, we have some comments. Okay. Some here. This one was from Steven. He once asked if Nick Bolton, after Nick Bolton was drafted, if he'd be close to Bobby Bell. You said no. I assume that was you because I know it wasn't me because I can't remember Bobby Bell. So I assume that was you.
Yeah, and Steven, Nick's grown into a better player than I expected him to, but he's no Bobby Bell. I don't honestly think that it's close yet. If he's able to maintain this level of play through another 6 seasons, maybe. But I would not put him in the same pedestal at that point. I know they're totally different eras, and I get that. I don't know that you can say you got to make a decade team. That's kind of the way that I look at it, to tell you the truth.
Agreed.
And Nick's got a long way to go to get there. So let's check in 4 years and see what the sustained impact has been. And if so, maybe he can be. But I will say this. He and George Karlaftis have both beaten my expectations for their careers already in terms of their development. So kudos to them.
Absolutely. The same with me. I was the same. I didn't necessarily think they could both be as impactful as they have been. And even to their limitations, they've outplayed what it is. And their limitations are still the same limitations. They've just gotten better at doing what they did well. And that's the important thing, is you can't always know the work ethic is there. Clearly for those two players, it was there and they got better at what they did. So hats off to them. This one's also letting you know where Steven was at and where he's going. So appreciate the super chat. Again, Steven.
Okay, so it is up by Windsor. Okay. Hey, I'm glad to know it, Steven. At some point, I'll be up there. You're in Denver this weekend. I'm in the spring, so that should be interesting. But at some point, I'll just let everybody start knowing. We'll drop some Friday shows just some little ones, perceptions as we go along, and I'll let you know when I'm going to be up there to see if we can connect. I usually, whenever I'm in Fort Collins in particular, I will make a stop at New Belgium. I make a stop at Odell. Odell's my favorite brewery, period. And you can generally, on the way home, find me at Avery. So those are the three that are pretty consistent.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much, Stephen, for the 5 there, as always. And another one from Stephen here, just letting you know that the, this very auto-tuned country song from Darren Waller about being heartbroken. It was awful, genuinely awful. It was one of the worst things my ears have heard. So don't just do yourself a favor and don't listen to it if you haven't. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Will do. For those of you who listen to my EP, you'll not find any auto tune on there because it just sounds wrong a lot of the time. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Ooh.
That's good. It's always good to hear. We are, by the way, the Stevens are representing tonight. We have like 5 or 6 of them in here. We got another one from
awesome.
Stephen here. Are we in trouble if Kingsley or Wanye do not play well? Ryan, what do you have to say?
I mean, yeah, especially if both of them don't, because they're likely, I think right now, I think they're both starters week 1. I think Wanye is going to play left guard because I don't know if Joe's going to be ready for week 1. So
I'm trying to figure out. We have not heard. I was thinking yesterday, we haven't heard a peep about Joe Thuney. What's happening with Joe Thuney? No one is saying anything. That's not a good sign, guys. That's very upsetting. Yeah.
If Joe doesn't play until October, they might be in for a struggle. I will say this though, and I said it at the time, I was thinking on the right-hand side, but I think Wanye can go in and play guard pretty well. He would be a high-level athlete for a guard. And I do like the idea of the two of them, in my opinion, both stronger in the run than they are in the pass on the left side. I like what it does for Pacheco, and I think you can make some wrinkles off of it that might be advantageous. So how would you feel?
I think I would disagree about Kingsley being stronger in the run than he is in the pass protector. I think he's better as a pass protector, but 2 young players playing next to each other is typically hard. Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey did a fantastic job, large part because Creed Humphrey is one of the best centers in football, and he was as soon as he stepped on the field. That's not going to be the same with Kingsley and Wanye, but I think that he could also be pushed by Hunter Norzad. I think Hunter Norzad might also be able to play left guard. And because he not only played guard and center at Penn State, has tackle experience, he might be the better option week 1 because Wanye has been playing tackle and practicing at tackle, and bumping him inside week 1 to me seems like a bad idea.
Hey, that's fair. And, and I'm thinking of it this way. I agree with you on tape. Kingsley was a little bit better pass blocking. I don't think he's going to be ready at the next level. I got to tell you. So that's why I'm thinking I'd let him concentrate on the run, and I could be comfortable with it. But you have a fair point. If Wanya's close to getting beat out by another rookie, then we're talking a much more troublesome situation. And I don't mean to alarm everyone. I just wonder if Joe's not even being spoken about yet as, hey, we'll see him at camp, which is what I'm hoping to hear this week. If we don't hear that, it makes me think maybe it's more like October. I don't think that he's like going to retire or anything. I just don't know if he's ready to get back at it yet.
And that's okay. Like I think we need to understand that that's okay. You want him later in the season. If it's anything, if I had to choose between coming back before he's ready and coming back when he is ready, give me when he's ready. I'll absolutely take the all-pro left guard in October versus 75% of the all-pro guard in September. Like that's just not okay for me. But to actually answer the question, Stephen, no, they're not. Donovan Smith was awful last year. Let's be very honest. He was awful. He was not a good left tackle. They won a Super Bowl. Wanya Morris, when he came in, was an objectively bad pass protector. He was an objectively bad one, but they ran the ball well. They can find ways to mitigate poor, I'll say even poor to average to poor left tackle play from young and inexperienced players. They've done it before. They have experience doing it. So until they get their feet underneath them, I think that they have multiple ways of condensing the offense. They also learned, last year after the Raiders game, how going back to the basics can help your offense. Weird how that works sometimes. So they have they have some little things that they learned from last year that are going to help them early on if things aren't going as swimmingly as they expect it to.
I like it.
All right. Appreciate that, Stephen. Adam, thank you for being here and thank you for your question. What player would be a surprise to make the team? So we've had a variety of these questions. It's hard for me right now to really be surprised with someone making the roster because it's largely in my mind set in stone. I think one person that would genuinely shock me if they made the roster was Lucas Niang. Basically done. If again, maybe they bump him inside, but he's 6'7". How are you going to bump him to play inside at 6'7" is tough, but maybe they don't feel comfortable someone backing up Jawan Taylor at right tackle. Maybe that's not where they feel Wanya Morris is ready to go back to. I don't know, but he's the only person that I think might have a spot to play for that would surprise me that they made it, if that makes sense.
Okay. For me, it's Bug. I just don't know. Couldn't get off the practice squad last year, had the off the field thing. And I know it was, there's all kinds of talk about what's actually going on with that. But I just feel like he should be in a position where he should be pushing Derek Nottie for a nose tackle type role, or at least a shifted one tech kind of thing. I don't hear jack about him. So I'm thinking this may have been a failed experiment in the end, and we're just going to have to see. But who knows?
That's fair. It's tough when you bring back Derek Nottie after you thought maybe you weren't going to be bringing Derek Nottie back. Doesn't usually spell good news for the person that you thought was going to take over for that. But again, you guys know I'm big on. His name just slipped out of my head. The defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. The UDFA is. I can't. Or maybe it's Florida State. I can't remember.
Florida State.
Don't mind me.
Lovett. Yeah,
I'm talking about Lovett. Florida. If Lovett, I think he's not only going to make the roster. I think he's going to play. I genuinely think he's that good. And so, again, that wouldn't surprise me. But maybe that would be a surprise to you guys. So Fabian Lovett is a surprise. A guy that I've labeled already as my surprise to make the roster. So maybe that's more of the question that you were asking. And if it is, well, there you go.
Hey, sweet.
Got two birds with one stone there. That we try to do. Appreciate another Stephen. Another question from you today. Why don't we draft a backup quarterback? And who would you like to draft to be Patrick's backup? Personally, I'm extremely excited that Carson Wentz is the backup. He's the youngest backup they've had under Patrick Mahomes, and he's also just, if I want someone to come in, if Patrick's and doesn't play at all for a game or whatnot, has to do something, he's the guy I would be like, go do some of the crazy stuff that Patrick does. Go do some of those crazy things because, you might end up throwing a couple of picks. If you lose a game, you lose a game because Patrick's not your starter. I don't really care how it happens, to be very honest with you. I think Carson Wentz's upside as the backup to Patrick Mahomes is very fun to think about. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think the reason they don't draft a guy to be a backup is because Andy is 100%, 1,000% sold on the concept that the backup needs to be a veteran with experience that can help the starter. It is a quarterback room philosophy, not you're our number one and you're our number two. It's a group mentality. And I do think even as Patrick gets older, we might see the years start coming down to maybe there's a guy that's contemporary age for Patrick eventually, but he's always going to want somebody with more experience, more years watching film, more little subtleties they can take away to continue to enhance Patrick's game. And until it gets to that point where he's just beyond and outlived everyone that's older than him, if he hits 38 or 40 and he's still playing like I think that he can, there's not going to be anybody else left in the league that's older. So it'll shift at some point, but I don't think that's going to happen for the foreseeable future.
I agree with you there. That makes a lot of sense. Oh, William, 31 months. Whew. Loving it. Love to see that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, buddy.
You're closing in on that 3 years too, man. That's impressive. Congrats to Dan on the new gig. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to getting, deep into college film. It's June. I'm going to be watching lots of players starting very, very soon. So it's going to get interesting. And I think I have a little bit of intel. I'm probably going to be watching both Kansas and Mizzou. Like, I would think pretty soon. So all you Kansas and Mizzou fans, I'm probably also going to be making it out to a game of them to actually live scout this year. That will be a lot of fun. So cross my fingers on that one to see what we get to do. But thank you very much, William. And also thank you for being a member for 31 months, man. That's crazy. It's awesome. Love to see it.
I'm just going to help you now, Dan. Grim. Things are grim. That's what you want to watch.
Hey, I got it's fine. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. Go to a game to scout. I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah. And by grim, I mean 2 M's that he plays for Kansas. So
that's what I assumed as much. I'm also thinking that Jalen Daniels is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Neil, it's good. Hey, it's a good year to be a jail.
Oh,
let's just put it that way.
Man, I wish he would have came out last year. Chiefs should have drafted him. All right, Brandon, thank you for your question. Pick 2 for return kickoff. Reese Sammet, Worthy, Hardman, Tony, Hollywood. What's the scariest kick return duo in the league? I'm going to let Ryan take this one first because I don't want to answer it first. I'll be very honest.
I would be interested in the administration of Worthy and Zamet myself.
I think that's where I lean, but I think he should be playing more offense, so I will take Hardman and Zamet because I think that those two, one, we've already seen him working with Zamet to help on the return stuff, so that's where I'm like, those 2 guys, like those make sense. But also, it could be a non-wide receiver, it could be just a Nick Jones, someone that has twitch, like something. Again, if it came down to it, it wouldn't necessarily always be a wide receiver. So that's just something to keep in mind. But I lean Hardman and Zamet myself. All right, we're going to speed through these last ones here quickly for you guys and get you all out of here. Belisarius, thank you. How do you see the wide receiver room filling out? 6 wide receivers, 7. Who doesn't make it? So I've kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. We think it's going to be 6. I don't think we're going to see 7 again. Andy Reid did that. Said, no, thanks, guys. We're done. I'm not listening to the fans again. And we're going to go with 6, most likely, specifically because they drafted Jared Wiley. I think that makes a big impact here for tight ends, 6 receivers. I think that's how that plays out. Again, if it was me, Kadarius Toney would make this roster. I would already cut him. I already would have cut him. I would be done with it. So that's what I got. We kind of already know this 6 in terms of.
We agree on 6. And I'm going to say that Ross is on the outside looking in and he becomes a practice squad player or maybe gets pissed off and leaves. I don't know.
I would not argue with that in the slightest because I tend to agree with you. I don't think he's good enough to be on the roster. I don't.
Agreed.
Sad. Gary, well, thank you for being here, obviously, with one of our moderators and having a question for us here at the end of the show. Ryan and Dan, do you guys see the Chiefs receivers getting back to like Tyreek Hill offense this year? Funny you mentioned this, Gary. It's a good question because my video on Wednesday is going to focus on the deep ball. We are going to talk about the Chiefs' deep ball problems, some of the ways that I won't say fixed it because they didn't fix it, but some of the ways they manufactured explosive plays and how we can look at the offense with the different pieces that they're going to have this year and how they can actually use that to create explosives, maybe not just in the deep ball, down the field stuff, over the middle of the field. We're going to look at all of that on Wednesday. It's going to be a long one, so be prepared. We got lots of information to go over, so just be, strap in for Wednesday. It's going to be fun, though. I can promise you that.
I'm ready for it.
Scuba Steve, what's going on? What do you guys think of the Royals this year? Also, who was your team? I don't know if Ryan knows what's going on with the Royals, but I also don't know if he cares about baseball.
Neither and neither. No, they're a team that plays for a sport that I neither understand nor pay any attention to.
There we go. That's
Sorry,
kind
Steve,
of what I
got
figured.
nothing for you.
That's okay. Scuba, they are a lot of fun. They don't give up. They hit, they pitch, they play defense. Like I was really impressed watching them because I'm a Tigers fan. I'm from Michigan most of my life, and I'm a Tigers fan, and they suck. So I they have 1-2 good players, and I get to watch them and be happy every 5 days when Tarek Skubal, the best pitcher in baseball, takes them out. But the Royals are just this team that just, they're Goonies. They never say die, right? They are always going out there. They're always trying to just consistently to bat. They're just a lot of fun. They feel like they're young, even though they've got like a few older players that they brought in this offseason, if I'm not mistaken. So they're a lot of fun. So yeah, I love that Kansas is getting that and Missouri's getting that, and just a lot of overall good vibes in Kansas City with, Bobby Witt Jr., who's one of the best players in baseball, and Patrick Mahomes, who's the best quarterback. Like, there's a lot of fun things happening right now. Mr. Big Phil, thank you for being here. Do you think CEH is going to be good enough for the backfield, Ryan?
Yes, for as long as he can stay healthy, or there's a fashion show. But yeah, I do think he'll be in the top 3 here until there's a reason he cannot be functioning.
Healthy CEH, a little bit more, maybe 5-10 pounds heavier CEH was better last year than the last 2 seasons previous that. There's a reason for that, because he's not fast. Why act like you can be fast, right? Why act like you can? So just put on a few more pounds, help your contact balance, and grind out some yards. And he showed he could do that last year, and they finally threw him the football. They finally threw him the football a bit, and that's what you want. There's a play that I was watching from the 6 games that I watched for the deep ball project and working on. He's wide open on a wheel route, and he doesn't get looked at. I'm just like, what are we doing here? It's the same thing over and over again. But yes, he's good enough for the backfield because they don't have anybody else better. That's the hard to honest truth.
It is. But thank you, Phil. Great question. And thanks for wrapping it up for us. And thank you all for being here. I know it's off season. I know there's questions, and we're a little lackadaisical about getting answers, but we're going to get them eventually. Mandatory minicamp starts tomorrow. We'll have a breakdown here later in the week. At least I will. Dan's got the film extravaganza on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. And we have Gary going to break down all the history and the stats and everything that you're looking for. Check out pxg.com/RGR and get yourself into it like we seem to be doing. And Dan, swing away is all I'm going to say to you. Thanks, buddy.
Every single time, every opportunity I get, how about that? We will swing away as hard as we can. Hopefully, you can get out there on the course too, Ryan. By the way, if you guys are into golf, the U.S. Open is this week. I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be so much fun. I'm so excited.
Have a great night. Thank you for being with us. We'll catch you tomorrow with some more content, and don't miss Wednesday for that deep ball extravaganza. Have a good one. We'll talk to you later.